Welcome to our latest Soccer Down Here 1v1. One I'm really excited about, an event that kind of captured my attention when I first started to hear about it, was the Daytona Soccer Fest. And got to know a little bit about the people who are behind it. And it's not just the Daytona Soccer Fest that they're involved in. You're going to get to hear from one of those people today, somebody that I'm looking really forward to chatting with, JP Reynal, the CEO of Onside Entertainment, a Miami-based sports event production company. He's the director of the Women's Cup, and he's partnered with Torneos and the Daytona International Speedway to bring you the Daytona Soccer Fest. JP, thanks for the time. Thanks for joining Soccer Down Here.
Well, thank you, Jason. It's great to be on your show.
I want to get into a lot of things with you today, JP, but I want to start with the Daytona Soccer Fest, an event that I know has been in the works for a minute. I know it was really close to happening in 2021, but the effects of COVID have slowed everything down. How long has it taken to get this off the ground?
That is totally correct. It's actually been 5 years, almost to the day, in the planning since the project started. And so it's definitely a long time coming.
So doing a soccer event at a NASCAR speedway is not the typical play. You've got to walk me through how everything came together and how the idea came up for an event as ambitious as the Daytona Soccer Fest.
All right. So the idea came out of a bit of a necessity to innovate and to do something different to generate, more revenues for my company. So I have a sports promotion production company, specializes mainly in soccer, and so we do a lot of international friendlies. So when we started with the business about 10 years ago, we started bringing all the Latin American teams to play in the United States. And of course, at the time, we were the only ones bringing Latin American teams to play in the U.S. So there was great anticipation and great expectation. A lot of these teams, Boca Juniors, River Plate, America, Atlético Nacional, they were all teams that maybe came here once every 5 years or every 7 years or maybe even every 10 years. So whenever they did show up on U.S. soil, it was really a big happening, and everybody turned out to watch them. So as we started to do this more and more often and bringing all these teams to play every year, because the teams wanted to come and do the pre-seasons and play every year, then we started realizing that we were sort of like eating into our own sort of market, to the extent that the novelty effect or factor of having these teams come all the time meant that we'd have less and less attendance. So at the time, I started thinking that soccer needed to innovate, and we needed to start doing something different that would allow us to grow sort of the footprint of just what it means to have a friendly. But of course, that friendlies, there's so much official league play and international play that friendlies, kind of became a little bit boring, because, you can watch your team play almost every day of the week. So when you're playing a friendly, you're playing for nothing. It's not as exciting. And if if these teams are coming all the time, it was not as exciting. At the time, somebody introduced me to the ownership of NASCAR. And so I went up there and I sat down with them, and I looked at their stadium, and I said, look, you guys ought to do a soccer match here. And so they looked at me like if I was a bit crazy. And I said, look, you have this incredible venue. They just got done, spending $500 million renovating the venue. So it was incredible. And they only have really 2 big races a year there at Daytona. And so, I pitched them the idea. I said, I'm going to build a soccer pitch, and we're going to use part of your grandstands, and we can probably put 40,000 people. And soccer's never done this before. And so, they bought into the idea, and we started working on the project. And originally it was going to be an Argentina versus Colombia game with Messi, and it was going to be played right after the 2018 World Cup. I don't know if you recall, Messi got suspended and didn't get a chance to play the friendlies after the World Cup. So without Messi in the lineup, the game kind of lost interest, or the glamour that it had to have in order to pull off such an event of this magnitude. So we went back to the drawing board. We canceled that year on doing the event there, and went back to the drawing board. And I said to them, look, I've been seeing declining numbers on just soccer, and the younger generations, they're antsy about going to a game and just sitting there and doing nothing. I'm going to suggest that we do a festival, and we do a soccer festival. And so we do soccer matches, and we have music, and we have car racing, and we have fishing, because they have a gigantic lake there in Lake Lloyd in Daytona. And we're going to do a Lollapalooza, Coachella of soccer, music, and entertainment. And of course, they looked at me as if I was completely nuts. And so I went back to the drawing board, and I put together the whole project, went back to them and convinced them once again that it was a good idea and that this could happen. So we started working on the project, and then COVID hit, and we were going to do it in 2020. And so we had to postpone, and then we had to postpone again in 21. And so this year is finally happening, and we have an incredible lineup, and we're going to do something that's never been done before. And we got the NWSL to come and play an official league match, which is incredible, with Orlando Pride being the home team against Racing Louisville. And then we have an All-Stars Legends game, and we have the Colombian Classic with the two top teams from Colombia coming to play. And then we have, great concerts from Raul Alejandro and from Chance the Rapper, and World Freestyle Federation Championship and a Tech Ball Championship. And it's just basically a soccer palooza of everything. If you love soccer, and you want something to do the 4th of July weekend, this is your place to be.
With such a creative idea, I wondered how the response would be. How has that been so far?
Well, the response has been incredible. At first we had to sort of explain to people what it was that we were doing. It's easy if you just allowed me about maybe 3 minutes to give you the pitch. And so in 3 minutes, it's, maybe easier to sell. But when you have to show it in one image or a 30-second spot, it's a little bit harder. So it's been, at the beginning, it was very hard to explain to people what it is that we were doing. But now sales have been picking up nicely, and I think we're going to have a lot of people over the 4th of July. So
one of the most unique components of the Daytona Soccer Fest is that it includes a league match from the NWSL. How hard was it to get a league to buy into the concept to the point that they would have a league match on site at the Daytona International Speedway?
So that was incredibly hard. So let me tell you, the story started with us trying to sell the MLS on the idea. And executives in New York bought into the idea, but they said, okay, you guys got to talk to one of the teams here in Florida and figure it out with them, because they would have to give up a local sort of home match. So we started thinking, okay, this is going to be a bit of a challenge, but we'll sit down and negotiate. And we started to figure out how a formula would work. So because we had to literally take an MLS team from their home stadium and take all their fans and give every fan a seat in this new stadium we're building. And so it wasn't an easy negotiation. There's obviously a lot of other implications, TV rights, sponsorship rights, et cetera, et cetera. So we kind of ran out of time with the MLS, and the schedule was coming out. And then once the schedule was coming out, it would be impossible to pull it off. So I thought, look, I have a great relationship with the NWSL. I do the Women's Cup, and I have a really good relationship with the owners and with the commissioner at the time, Marla Maples. And so I said, okay, let's pull this off with the NWSL. And I sat down and basically, pitched upon the idea. And excuse me, the name is Marla Messing, not Marla Maples. Marla Messing was the commissioner at the time. The new commissioner is Jessica Berman, but we started this with Marla. And so I pitched Marla the idea, and she was, a bit iffy, but open-minded. And then I have a very good friend in Louisville, who's the owner of the Racing Louisville team, John Neese. And I told John about the idea. I said, John, you need to help me, convince the league on this, because, I think it's going to be really good for the NWSL. You guys are trying to promote women's soccer, and this is the kind of thing that's going to be seen around the world. And so John got behind it and put me in touch with Jared Dillon, because at the end of the day, it was Jared Dillon, the president of Orlando, the incoming president of Orlando, to make the call, because they would have to give up the home match. And Jared is just an incredible guy who comes from the NHL, who comes from Major League Baseball. on his first year in Orlando. You know, the Will family took over there, and they brought him in to run the show. And it kind of took an outside of the box thinking executive that had seen what the Hockey Classic, Winter Classic had done for the NHL to understand the value of doing something like this for the NWSL. So he immediately jumped on the idea, and he was just starting the job, literally just starting that week when I pitched him the idea. And he said, look, let me get my feet sort of, settled here. And, I have to try to convince all these soccer people that, they're going to give me a lot of pushback because nobody, everybody's always a little bit, difficult about change. And, soccer is a very sort of slow moving industry compared to other industries as far as change is concerned. Anyways, but he was great about convincing everybody there and the coaches and all the technical staff that it would be a great idea. And so we got the ball rolling and we pulled it off. And so now we're having this NWSL game, and CBS is stepping up. They're going to broadcast it on national TV on prime time. So it's going to be there for the whole USA and the whole world to see. So it's going to be really amazing.
So another component of the event that I'm excited about is the Legends game. Tell me a little bit about how complicated that's had to be to put together.
The Legends game is incredibly complex. We have I think we almost have like 30 players coming in from different parts of the world, and it's definitely complex to put together. We have some really good players. We have World Cup winners. We have UEFA Champions League winners. I know that you're a big fan of Argentina, so you'd be happy to know we have Lavezzi, we have Verón, we have Augusto Fernandez, we have Javier Zanetti. So we have some really strong Argentine firepower.
So the 2022 event is coming up soon. What's the future for the Daytona Soccer Fest?
It's going to continue in future years, obviously, depending on the success of this year. So we have this year, a big investment in this event, and so we hopefully, if it's successful this year, we'll continue to do year over year. Our contract with NASCAR is a 5-year deal, so hopefully we'll have 5 years ahead minimum.
So to add to your busy summer, you're not taking a break after the Daytona Soccer Fest. You have the Soccer Cup in Louisville coming up.
Yes, we don't get any rest. The second we finish with Daytona, we're all moving to Louisville, and we have the Women's Cup coming on. And the Women's Cup is now this year becomes the largest professional women's club tournament in the world. It's sort of the Women's Club World Cup that doesn't yet exist, because we have teams from Japan, from Mexico, from the United States, from Italy, from England. So it's going to be a great lineup of the best teams in the world. It's really the only opportunity, other than the World Cup. But the World Cup is when nations meet, but it's really the only opportunity for clubs of different continents to face each other and see where they stand. And also very interesting because Europe has really kicked it into overdrive with women's soccer. A few years ago, the Americans were, hands down the best in club soccer. But now every major brand in Europe has gotten together and said, look, we're going to make women's soccer a priority. And you can see this happening. I don't know if you got a chance to look at the finals of the UEFA Women's Champions League, which was just incredible between Lyon and Barcelona. And then Barcelona, prior to that match, had 2 sellouts at Camp Nou with 91,000 plus. So the level of not only of play but of fan interest in Europe is just tremendous for women's soccer, and that only means that they're going to start attracting the best players in the world, as they did with men's soccer. So I think women's soccer, it's going to be very interesting to see what the NWSL does, not to fall behind. So last year in our tournament, Racing Louisville beat Bayern Munich in the finals. We can see up until last year that the Americans were still better than the best that Europe had. Bayern Munich had made it to the semifinals of the Champions League, so there were top 4 teams in Europe last year. But this year, we'll see what happens. We're bringing a couple of very good teams from Europe, which we'll announce officially next week. We're bringing Club America from Mexico. We're bringing Tokyo Beleza from Japan, and of course, from the U.S. side, it'll be Racing Louisville and OL Reign.
One thing I love about the Women's Cup roster is you have Club America of Liga MX Femenil involved in it. And Liga MX Femenil has invested a ton, and I really love the growth of that. Competing with the NWSL, do you think you're going to see more cross-pollination between NWSL and Liga MX Femenil like MLS and Liga MX?
There certainly should be. I spoke with the folks at CONCACAF about a month ago. A lady who's just brilliant. I know Heidi Peirano. She's a chief commercial officer at CONCACAF, and she's very strong driving force behind the women's soccer for CONCACAF. And they have big plans for women's soccer and the growth of women's soccer. I think it's just a matter of time before you have the Mexican teams on the women's side playing like the MLS Liga MX project. And I think, look, the Mexicans are playing great soccer at the women's level. And that's why we, as the organizers of this event, we're also very interested to see how Club America matches up against the best from Europe and US and the best from Asia. So it's going to be a fun tournament. It's going to be on CBS. There's 7 matches. 3 of the matches will be on CBS. And the other match on Paramount Plus. So I hope everybody tunes in and checks it out.
JP, thanks so much for the time. Appreciate everything you're doing. We need to get you here to Atlanta to get some events going on in the Atlanta area. When are we going to make that happen?
Would love to. I think before we started the podcast, I told you about a little bit of a secret that we can't maybe share right now, but hopefully next year there'll be an Atlanta component associated with Soccer Fest.
Okay, there we're talking. Awesome. JP, thank you so much for the time. Thanks for everything today.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me, and good luck with the coming season.